G'day all you beautiful people of planet Earth, and welcome to another episode of Planet Positivity. For episode 8, we're going to different locations around Italy. Of all the incredible countries that I'd been to around the world by this point in my life, none of them actually had as much personal significance to me as Italy did. And I wonder if you can guess why. I won't keep you in suspense. The reason Italy was so important to me is because one entire side of my family originated from there. And as a result, I actually speak a little bit of Italian, or io parlo un po' italiano. Anyway, I won't make you wait anymore. Andiamo, which means let's go. So funny story, at the start of our trip together, many of us had trouble sleeping on the coach. It can be really difficult and uncomfortable to sleep on a moving coach, kind of like on an aeroplane. But by this stage in our adventure, we were more than a week into it by then, and we'd become so used to these long drives. Sometimes we were driving between 6 and 12 hours in one day on a coach. And we were all so tired because usually the night before we left was pretty epic. So most of us needed to catch up on sleep. God love our tour guide, Ash. She's such a ball of awesome sauce, that woman. She decided to run through the coach and take a time lapse of everybody crashed out in their sleeping positions. So on our way to Rome, we stopped in this beautiful little town in northern Italy called Verona. It might sound familiar to some of you. So Verona is the setting to William Shakespeare's epic love story, Romeo and Juliette. And I didn't know until we actually got there. And this is why I love tours so much, because they take you to places you may not have ever known or thought of or gone to on your own. But anyway, there's a place there that is the location of Juliette's house. And obviously the story is fiction, it's not real, but they've even added a balcony to the first floor. Once you see this, instantly in your mind, you're running those famous lines. You know the one. If you do, say it with me. "Oh Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name." I thought I'd pay homage to my fellow Australians by saying it in an Australian accent. Originally it's said with an Old English accent, and to be honest, it would have sounded super delicious with an Italian accent. But anyway, what can you do? So when you get to Juliette's house, there's this small walkway that leads to this open courtyard with a big statue of Juliette. And there were lines for days to try and get a picture with this statue. It was even difficult to get through all the tourists in the walkway to get to the courtyard to take a photo of this balcony. Again, not that any of it is real, but that story is pretty epic in the Western world anyway. I actually learnt when I was in the eastern side of the world with Arabic people that there's an Arabic Romeo and Juliet story equivalent, I suppose you could say. But I'll save that for when I do the Egypt episode. Anyway, the highlight for me of this whole experience was definitely that little walkway. So The walls are filled from top to bottom with love letters and graffiti and post-it notes from people all over the world. Who knew? I didn't. Apparently this whole letters to Juliette thing is actually a thing. I had no idea until I got there and saw it for myself, but this thing is insane. But the idea that people go all the way to Verona from all over the world to leave their mark, all in the name of love, it's kind of beautiful, don't you think? There's so much history to be found in Rome that I honestly thought it would be really hard to be able to travel around and see all the major sites. What actually surprised me about Rome was how easy it was to walk around simply exploring and to be able to find all these major historical sites. But first, you gotta eat. If there's one thing that's known about Italian culture, is that food is deeply embedded into it. Not just in the culture, it's embedded into our culos. We love to get our mangiare on. Anyway, we had our first meal at Achille al Pantheon, named because it's located on the heels of the Pantheon, right? If you could care less about history, just travel Italy for food. You will not be disappointed, people. Go get your mangiare on. I promise you, you will fall in love, madly, deeply, and truly in love with food, like I did. From that moment on, from that meal on in Italy, my love affair with Italian food was transported to an entirely new level. I mean, seriously. I have to keep swallowing. My mouth's actually watering just from thinking about it. Honestly, the pastas and the spaghettis, the lasagnas and the cannellones, the pizzas and the desserts. Oh, the desserts. The cannolis and the tiramisus. Oh my God. I have to stop talking about food because I'm getting hungry, aren't you? So when you get to the Pantheon, it's easy to see that it is the most well-preserved monument in all of ancient Rome. It's a marvel to look at it just from the front. I thought it looked really Greek, in my opinion, so I wasn't surprised to learn that it's actually a mix of both Greek and Roman styles. And it's obvious because both cultures love their columns. Anyway, I just love the fact that it was free to enter, and it's really rare to be able to find a historical site or a tourist attraction without a price tag. The most amazing part of the Pantheon was definitely when you went inside. The first thing you're struck with are these beautiful marble floors with these colourful geometric shapes in them. I was staring at that for so long because it was shiny. I didn't even notice that there was this ginormous dome above us. It took me a minute to realize and see the beautiful architecture of this dome. And when I looked at the center of it, you see that there's a hole in it, or as they call it, the eye. And it took me another minute to realize that that eye is the only light, or the only light source for the whole space. It is a very unique and special place indeed. Now, as much as history interests me, as I'm sure a lot of you would know by now, what I love the most in the world are the things that bring humanity together in the present. I love that so much more than history. History's in the past. I appreciate it, but what I appreciated the most, my favorite part of my Pantheon experience, actually happened outside of the Pantheon with hundreds of people. And it happened later. It may have even been on our second day in Rome. Anyway, I'll tell you about that afterwards. One thing I will tell you right now is 15 minutes after we left the Pantheon, we were standing in front of Fontana di Trevi, or the Trevi Fountain. That's how easy and how quick it is to walk around Rome and go from one major place to another. So the Trevi Fountain is, in my opinion, the most popular tourist attraction in all of Rome. This gorgeous masterpiece was so full of tourists at all times that you could barely move. Anyway, so legend has it, right? If you throw 1 coin into the fountain, you're guaranteed to come back to Rome. Throw 2 coins in the fountain, not only are you coming back to Rome, you will fall in love. Throwing 3 coins in the fountain is meant to make you return to Rome, fall in love, and get married. I took no chances. I threw in all the coins I had on me in there, hoping for the best. I even threw my leftover Swiss francs from Switzerland, just in case it helped. What's the worst that could happen? It all goes to charity at the end of the day anyway. I'm staring at this beautiful masterpiece, a fountain unlike anything I had ever seen before. The work, it would have taken years, and it was incredible. And then I'm panning around at the tourists or the audience to see who else is appreciating the beauty with me. And people were posing and checking their photos for the right photo of them posing. And I realized for a long time that I'm actually the only person standing here just like, wow, at this place. And I spent my 10 minutes there. I didn't take a single selfie. I'm not really one for selfies, you know me. But I'm just standing there looking at this thing like, where, in what country will I see a fountain this magnificent? It was so photogenic on its own. I felt like me being in the photo would actually ruin the beauty of the fountain. Anyway, on to the next place. So about 10 to 15 minutes after we left the Trevi Fountain, we were standing at the bottom of the famous Spanish Steps in the Piazza di Spagna, or the Spanish Square. And in the Spanish Square, you see the boat fountain, or the Fontana della Baccacia. I hope I've said that right, actually. Anyway, the boat fountain was surrounded by people, not so much marveling at it like they did at the Trevi Fountain, but because there were 4 points of this fountain where you could actually fill up your water bottle for free. So there were lines for days just for that. And I'll tell you something, that's probably one of the best things about Rome, and it's not something that's very common, not just around Europe, but around the world. There are points all over Rome on the streets and at fountains where you can fill up your water bottle with good, clean drinking water, which was a huge benefit to people like us who were walking all around Rome or roaming around Rome. But it's a whole nother ball game for people like me who'd thrown all their coins in the Trevi Fountain. So I had 2 beautiful moments at the Spanish Square in Rome. One on the Spanish Steps, and the other just after we left the fountain, but I'll save that for later. Onward to the Colosseum! So I remember on the coach on our way to Rome, if you didn't fall asleep, you were watching Gladiator the whole way to Rome. So as soon as we got to the Colosseum, all the good lines from the movie were playing in my head. We actually saw the Colosseum in the day, and then we went there together at night. And the group all got together to take a photo flexing in front of the Colosseum. It looked so romantical, all lit up at night, that for just a second you could almost forget all the terrible, horrifying and heartbreaking things that went down at that place. And for what? All those people who died and all those animals, all in the name of entertainment. Honestly, sometimes history is just so heartbreaking. So I was pretty shocked to learn that the Vatican is actually a separate state on its own. It didn't surprise me once I got there though. This front entrance was huge. There were fountains for days, columns for weeks, and statues on the top of each column that would have taken years for each of them to be made. So this place was somewhere that I had to go purely to pay tribute to my nonna's sister. Nonna is Italian for grandmother, in case you didn't know. So Adelaide, or Zia the nun, Auntie the nun, as my grandmother always used to call her, actually spent most of her life working in the Vatican as a nun. And at one stage, she actually cooked for one of the popes. I didn't have the time to go into the Vatican and explore, which was a little bit disappointing, but it was okay for me. With the time I had, I achieved my mission. I came, I saw, and therefore, as far as I was concerned, I conquered my task of ticking it off my list. So something that maybe only people like myself know who have relatives that are in the biz of nunnery, if you want to call it that. It's not as common as you think, actually, to know someone who's a nun, let alone be related to someone. Anyway, so Zia Adelaide, or Auntie Adelaide, is now in her early 90s. And so she no longer works at the Vatican. She's in a convent in a place called Loreto, which is a place that all the older nuns go to sort of take care of each other in their older years. So if you're watching, Zia Adelaide, mwah, ciao bella. You know the saying, when in Rome? If you ever find yourself in Rome, sing like the birds. No. When in Rome, my advice to you, the best thing to do is just roam around and explore. Just go roaming around Rome. You don't even need a map. There are piazzas, fontanas, monuments, statues, and McDonald's pretty much at every turn. The beauty of travel, in my opinion, is the chance of discovery. I can't tell you how many things I was able to see just by walking down different streets. Every time you get to a corner, look to your left, straight and right, you're bound to see something worth seeing. We saw so much of Rome in such a small amount of time that I learnt that although Rome wasn't built in a day, you could certainly see so much history on foot in a single day. It's almost ridiculous. So we were literally only in Pisa for a quick lunch stop and to have a look around before we moved on to our next destination. I'm so grateful for my tour guide Ash, the legend that she was and most definitely still is. When in Pisa, right, you take the stock standard tourist photo, you know, the one where you're holding up the Leaning Tower. She set us the greatest challenge. It was more like a competition. She made it super fun. But she actually said to get creative, and the best photo with the Leaning Tower of Pisa wins. Have no idea what you win, but who cares? Lots of people have fun doing this. I can't even show you the photo that won. I'm gonna let you use your imagination. I'll give you some clues. Too provocative to show. Some cultures would think it was downright inappropriate. And the Italians would call Kalia the winner cattiva, which means naughty girl. But an extra 10 points goes from me to, I think it was Julia who took the photo. Her amazing angular skills, she absolutely nailed it. It was fantastic. So as for me and a few Kiwi friends, we opted out of the selfie challenge. It's not really our thing to do that posing. So we instead chose to sit down in front of the Piazza dei Miracoli, which means the Field of Miracles. And we sat on the stairs outside of this building, which is a couple in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And then we ate some lunch, had a laugh, and watched the world go by exploring this beautiful little place. So the next place we visited was beautiful Venice, or as the Italians call it, Venezia. We actually stayed outside of Venice for 2 nights. And so to get to Venice, we actually had to travel by train. And I know it seems a little bit tacky, but it was kind of one of my favorite parts of the travel experience. You went from seeing roads with cars to seeing canals with gondolas and boats. You went from seeing traffic on the roads to seeing complete busy traffic pathways, going over bridges. It was absolutely beautiful, but it was very, very busy. No wonder it's called the City of Love. You simply cannot help but fall in love with the place. It's so romantical, with all of the beautiful bridges, each with different details on all the railings. Often as you're walking, you'll find it's sort of a thing that kicked off in Paris, but I've noticed it in bridges all around Europe, where you actually you lock a padlock around the bridge and you lock it for a relationship that you're in, and you toss the key into the water. From a sustainable environmental point of view, it's really not good for the bridge or for the environment, but the things we do in the name of love. We saw that all throughout Venice. Gondola rides are an absolute must going to Venice. Not going on a gondola in Venice is like going to Italy and only eating McDonald's. It's a must do. So after I went on the gondola ride, and pretty much all of us did that, because when in Rome, when in Venezia. So we went to this place called St. Mark's Square. It's so busy with people. If it ain't human beings blocking the walkway, it's birds. The Piazza San Marco is pigeon paradise, and it's well known for doing this and having this at all times. The Basilica di San Marco, or St. Mark's Basilica, the big church, it stands out like a sore thumb, and it is so beautiful. The details and the actual, it's like statues inbuilt into it. I'd never seen something like that. It was next level, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I tried to catch up the bell tower, a peek at the golden Archangel Gabriel. I couldn't actually see him, but I knew he was there. I was going to save this story for my beautiful moments in Italy part that I'm doing right at the end for you all, where all the best stuff comes out. But I've decided that this one's important and I have to bring it in here. So the Rialto Bridge is like one of the most iconic places that you have in Venice, right? So I decided, I was 30 years old in a beautiful place that I never thought I would see. Let's do something I never thought I would do and had never done before. I decided to try coffee for the first time. So on the right side of the Rialto Bridge, before you cross over to the other side, there's this gorgeous little cafe. And we're sitting on the Grand Canal. It was absolutely perfect. I was with a dear friend of mine from Canada and a Macedonian friend of mine who lives in Australia, and we're still really good friends. We sat down, I ordered a cappuccino and a tiramisu. How much more iconic does it get than that? The photos make it look like a beautiful moment. The video actually depicts the reality. I almost spat it out. I chose not to put any sugar in, just to be all authentic, and it was pretty disgusting. But after I added, 3 or 4 sugars, I was good to go. So our last stop in Italy, which was probably, it's hard to say favorites because it was all just so absolutely beautiful. But it was Florence, our last stop, or Firenze. I think it's an underestimated city in terms of its beauty. We went to this Piazza della something, right? I can't remember what it's called, but it's something unlike anything else I ever saw in Italy. It was like an open air museum with statues everywhere. It was absolutely gorgeous, and a fountain in the middle of it. It was out of this world. And then it opened up after a walkway into another beautiful space, and I'll tell you about the beauty that I saw there later on. The other thing I have to tell you about Florence, at night, walking alongside the river and crossing the bridge, and I was with the two girlfriends that I told you about from the Rialto Bridge, and we all just walked together, mostly in silence, just enjoying the peace and the natural beauty of Florence, as well as the man-made beauty in the bridge. And then we started taking some photos just to capture the moment. But that was my favorite romantic moment in all of Italy. So, the absolute most favorite thing for Italians to do, get your mangiare on. And what better way to do that with gelato? There is a famous gelatissimo in Florence called Perché No, which is like, why no, or why not? This place had a line out the door, and there were so many flavors. My mouth was watering, my stomach was gurgling because I was just in amazement at how many choices I had. We all got amongst it at Perché No. Make sure you do that if you find yourself in Florence. So now comes the part that I've never done before. I want to share with you some of the beautiful moments I had in Italy. And I'm actually going to go backwards. Since I just told you about Florence, let me tell you about the two beautiful moments that I had in Florence. The first thing was the artists in Florence. There are so many talented people around the edges of every single piazza you walk by, creating absolute masterpieces. You get everything from watercolor, people sketching the piazzas and the churches that you can see. You can even see people on the street that are doing, not caricatures, like portraits of people with charcoal. At one point in the museum that I told you about, the open air museum, I would just sit, and I even took some photos of some students who were drawing some of the statues that they could see. You can't go past the artists in Florence. And if you don't buy one, just sit there and watch someone create a masterpiece of a masterpiece. So now I'm going to share with you my favorite beautiful moment that I had in Florence. I call it the daddy-daughter moment. So we're just out the front of this leather shop. We just witnessed a bit of a demonstration, and all of our group was standing outside the doors. And I noticed that coming down the street towards our group was a father on a bike with a little baby who was younger than 1 year old, just holding on in front. No safety equipment because it doesn't matter. The kid knew balance like I'd never seen before. But more than anything, it was just such a beautiful moment. And I watched with a smile, and we actually exchanged a smile, the father and I, and my group were laughing at me like I was a crazy person because I ran down the street after them and then jumped in front of them and took a photo of it. You have to see it for yourself, but honestly, it was so worth it to capture the moment just to share it with you. It was so beautiful. So technically speaking, I can't tell you my Venice moment because I already shared the coffee experience with you. But speaking of the babies from the daddy-daughter moment in Florence, it reminded me of a moment, it was actually in Nice in France, but it was a beautiful moment that I called baby love to myself. So we're at this Italian restaurant in Nice in France, right? But most of the workers, the wait staff, were actually Italian themselves. As I was Italian, we started talking to each other, and then at one point, one of the workers actually brought his young son in to work. He was being passed around like a ball from person to person, and all of the staff showed so much love and excitement. And I love that babies can bring people together like that with so much joy and positive energy. It's beautiful to witness, but it's even better to be a part of. Okay, so now I'm going to share with you my two beautiful moments at the Spanish Steps that I told you about earlier. So the place was packed out, right? There were so many tourists on the stairs that you couldn't get a clear line to go straight up and straight down. I saw this gorgeous little boy dodging people running left and right, running up and down the stairs. So what did Ali decide to do? Ali decided to race him. He had no idea until I ran to the top and I looked at him next to him and started smiling. So we exchanged a glance, and then he realized what I was doing, and before I knew it, he took off at twice the speed of me, heading down the stairs, charging and dodging people like a football player. He beat me by a mile, and when I got to the bottom, all puffed out, he looked at me, he laughed, and then he ran off and we went our separate ways. But what an experience to have, what a memory to make, and what a beautiful moment to share with a complete stranger at an iconic location like the Spanish Steps. So my second beautiful moment that I had at the Spanish Steps, I call holding hands. And it's self-explanatory, but I'll explain it to you anyway. Although I took the photo just after we left the boat fountain, this couple were walking around Rome and seemed to be going to all the same sites that my group and I were. And I noticed them the entire time because the whole time they didn't leave each other's side and they were holding hands. It's always a beautiful thing to be in the presence of love, and it makes me happy to see people in love, because when you see love and you appreciate love and feel love even from other people, you're just spreading more love. Another beautiful moment I had in Rome was actually at the Vatican. So one of my favorite family pastimes with my nonna was always playing cards as a child with her and all my cousins. So for me, it was such a beautiful moment when out of nowhere, when I was walking around outside the Vatican, I just noticed these two guys casually sitting down on the stairs and playing cards. And as you know from when I told you before, the significance when it comes to La Familia for me to be at the Vatican was already a beautiful experience. And then having the reminder of my nonna just made that a beautiful moment for me. So the last two beautiful moments that I have in Italy happened at the Pantheon. So the first one, it's actually really funny. And I call it gesturing. Have any idea what I'm talking about? So, not just Italians, Europeans, Arabs, many people in the world are known for their gesturing. It looks really aggressive, but the truth is, it's simply expressive. But this was the first time I actually got to witness my own culture, almost like an outsider. So I had finished lunch at the restaurant before my friends and was waiting out the front for everyone to finish paying and whatever and come outside. And I had my back turned looking down at the laneway, and I could hear this conversation between two Italian guys. And it wasn't just what they were saying that made me turn around. It was also the volume that they were actually talking in, particularly one person that made me turn around to see who was talking. And I noticed that just behind me, sitting down at the table, was a waiter and one of the bosses. The conversation, beyond listening to the Italian, I stopped listening to the words and just started noticing the gesturing. For about 2.5 minutes, I watched this take place, and I'm looking at it like an outsider, and it was hilarious. If you didn't understand any Italian, just based on the gesturing alone, you would think that one is like a shark attacking this helpless boy that was doing nothing wrong, just sitting there quietly and taking it on. It was hilarious. But I didn't want to be rude and film it, but I wanted to capture this moment purely for myself, because I didn't ever know I was going to make a YouTube channel when I did this. So instead, I just quietly took 3 photos at different times for the next 5 minutes while I watched this conversation, and the timing was impeccable. At one stage it looks like he's about to slap him across the face. In another one it's like he's begging for mercy or pleading or like please, and it was absolutely hilarious. And I got to witness for the first time what it's actually like and how it actually looks on the outside. It's absolute gold. So as you got to do for loyal viewers like you, I decided to save the best for last. By the way, high five to you for making it to the end of this episode, or almost the end of this episode. As you know, my favorite thing in this world are the 4 things that bring humanity together. And I could actually argue that this beautiful moment at the Pantheon actually ticked off all 4 of them: art, sport, music, and a bit of comedy. It involved hundreds of people, and I'll be honest, this video in particular is my personal favorite of all the videos I took in Europe. I have watched this at least 1,000 times, and I'm so grateful to finally get to the point where I can share it with you. So, quick backstory. We approached this group, this ring of people from all over the world that had gathered together to watch this guy playing like a violin to Ed Sheeran's Shape of You. That was fantastic on its own. As we walked in, we watched the back end of 4 African people doing a beautiful dance, and they were going all the way around the ring, and I absolutely had to take a video, and I just captured the last few seconds of it. I wish you were there to see it with me, but you got the next best thing. After I saw this all from behind the guy that was playing, I feel sorry for all the people that I cut in front of, but I had to do it. I had to see it from the front, and I had to get it on film because I didn't know I was actually going to make a YouTube channel, but I'm going to argue that's why I did it. I cut in front of all of these people to go halfway around the circle. I even drew attention to the guy who was playing because I had to see it and I had to experience it and be in the moment with everybody. It was absolutely incredible, and I'm so grateful to share this moment with you. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Pantheon. Mwah, 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 mwah. Grazie, Italy. Oh my gosh, the beauty of Italy. And I know I have the emotional attachment to this place because this is where La Familia comes from, but you just can't be disappointed. You see so much beauty in Italy. The beauty of seeing ancient masterpieces, the beauty of seeing these gorgeous monuments and statues, these incredible artworks, not just the people doing them, the ones that were made a long time ago. You can't really look at any other fountain without thinking, wow, the Trevi Fountain is just absolutely incredible. The food, oh, the food, it is absolutely unmatched. Ever since I come home, sorry Nonna, but I can't match it. No one I know that is Italian can match the food I had in Italy. It was just so beautiful. I'm so grateful for everything I got to eat and experience and do, and to be able to have these beautiful moments with so many people from around the world in these random places. I'm just so grateful. Thank you, Italy. If you really get an opportunity to go, just go. Arrivederci, buona gente, which means goodbye and I'll see you soon, good people.